BeastNet Podcast, sponsored in part by James Safety Services, OCR Buddy, and supported by the fitness community. Here we discuss all things fitness related, running, rucking, mental health and preparedness, and of course, obstacle course racing. Welcome to the BeastNet.
Hey everybody out there in BeastNet land, Brother Boggs letting you know this is part 2 of the episode with Pretty Mike and Josh Koehler.
I was insane, and I did Montana this year, and someone told me that basically they didn't think I could do it wearing a 20-pound ruck. So, of course, I'm like, of course I can. So I did the whole trifecta weekend wearing a 20-pound ruck because I'm stupid. Ooh. But, and it was one of those, I refused help. The closest I came to getting help was for on the Beast, because the ropes were up higher, I took off the pack. Well, I did that, and that's the only one besides that and the rope climbing, the only ones I took the pack off for. But it was just, I'm like, nope, I'm doing this all. I'm doing it. And, I've got a video and everyone's like, wait a minute, are you still wearing the ruck while you're doing bender? I'm like, yes, I was. And you get that, you get that in your head. You're like, I'm going to do this. This is my challenge. And I know Joey and them, they completely understand that. They're like, we're here to help you, but we're going to let you do it your way. And that's what's amazing about them is they're not going to be like, no, we're here to help you. And it's like, nope, cool. If you want to do the burpees, you do your burpees. But if you just know we're here if you need us,
Yeah. My friends have been so patient with me, whether it's my wife or Leo Bryant, Doc B. He's run with me a couple times. You brought up Montana. I ran Montana and I did the super in age group. It was my first attempt at going back to age group, and I wanted to really do it to a T, zero help. And he knew that I didn't have anybody kind of running with me and talk about selflessness. I've talked about Joey doing it, he's not the only one. Leo Bryant, he basically ran the Beast and the sprint competitively for himself, but for the super, he basically gave up positioning in order to he started half an hour after me, or maybe it was 15 minutes, and he ran until he caught up with me, and then basically shadowed me as a safety partner for the rest of the race, even though we were both in age group, and he knew that I was a stubborn son of a gun and wouldn't accept physical help. He knew that I kind of needed a safety person because, it was a tough course. At that point, I was maybe 4.5, 5 months post-op, still nowhere close to the 18 months that was recommended for me to heal up. Yeah. And so I've got a lot of really good, really selfless friends who are not only giving up their time, but in the case of Leo, multiple times he has given up placement and the opportunity to compete because he sees a need for a friend to have somebody that knows the condition, knows what to look for. And I'm beyond humbled. I almost feel really selfish sometimes because I know that so many people are giving up a lot of things that are important to them. Age group runners who are competitive and knocking on the door of podiums and competing for series points and yearly points for the awards that you can get in age group at the end of the year. When they stop and run a race with me at my pace with red headbands and say, forget about my points, forget about the standings, forget about my placement. I want to make sure you're safe because I know enough about your condition that other people don't. And if you start saying gibberish words or exhibiting signs, I'm going to, be able to recognize that a lot sooner than what a volunteer or a random fellow racer would. And they choose to run with me. That's not something that I take lightly or take for granted. I'm going to owe a lot of people a lot of favors at the end of this year. I mean, and even if the season were to stop right now, I already do. So Joey, Elizabeth, Leo, my wife, all the people that have run with me, the other people. There's too many people with more heart than scars to fully mention everybody. I recognize your sacrifice, and I am beyond thankful. So if anything, that's my message out to the community and to the friends that have helped me. I hope that I can be 10% of the friend to you guys going forward that you've been to me. And I love the community. I'm addicted to the races, but I'm addicted to the community even more. I can't stop going to the races because what I just described, you don't get in your 9-to-5 job usually. No. You don't get on your neighborhood street usually. There might be a couple of people who are, work with some folks that are their best friends or have incredible neighbors, but for the most part, 99% of people don't experience something like that. And it's addicting, and you don't, when faced with the risk of returning to OCR, knowing that I would be missing out on all of those types of experiences, and that I would probably just sit on the couch and get depressed. The other option for me was to accept the condition, live an incredibly easy life. And knowing myself, I would probably get undisciplined, get depressed, and go back to playing video games and watching TV. And, I knew that wouldn't be good for my cardiovascular health either. So I decided to return to OCR, and I'm doing what I can. I take blood pressure medicine. I got to do special breathing techniques on most obstacles, or skip the obstacles and do burpees. And when I'm doing my burpees, I have to exhale every time I'm pushing. Different little things that I've learned to do from physical therapists or from the doctors and specialists in order to minimize the spikes in blood pressure. And I'm trying to get by as best as possible and pull off the seemingly unthinkable. And it's just great. It's
well, it's one of those things, not to, whether you're religious or believe in the universe or whatever, it could be one of those things that maybe this was the universe's way of saying, hey, you aren't meant to be a podium. You are meant to be something for other people with issues to look at and say, I can do this. Because I understand exactly what you're saying. I have been that guy sitting on the couch eating potato chips, playing video games, and just letting myself get huge. And it sucks. The depression that comes along with that, what it does to your body, what it does to you mentally. And I don't think people realize that much. And I don't think I even realized how much stress that put on me mentally and physically until I lost the weight. And then all of a sudden it's like the mental, issues that come along with just sitting there playing video games and getting fat kind of, fade away, not completely, but a little bit, and then, the physical, how much physically better I feel. My knee bugs me sometimes, but not like it used to. It used to be like I took 3 steps and my knee's like, hey, I hate you. And now it's, not till after I do a marathon, then it hates me. But it's still, I can do a marathon now. And that's it. Maybe that's, you were meant to be that guy to show everybody else and say, hey, I can throw all this physical issues at you. Because, we haven't even mentioned everything before the heart issue.
Right.
Which the heart issue is a huge, but I've seen the email and I've read all this stuff that tells me all this stuff that you did that happened prior to the heart, that you continued to be physically active. Like you said, we all have those things. And that's one of the things I love is most time you talk to a lot of athletes and everyone assumes they've been an athlete their whole life. And they don't realize, a lot of us, I was an athlete up until junior high when I blew my knee. Mm-hmm. And then I stopped being an athlete and I started being just, a fat guy sitting on the couch eating potato chips, and I would gain weight and lose weight a little bit here and there, but it wasn't until, the last 2 years where I finally was like, no, I'm done. And I really started focusing on the exercise and really putting a plan in place that everything changed. when people look at me now and they're like, you're a runner, you're an athlete. And I'm like, have you seen pictures of me from 2 years ago? I was 285 pounds,
Right.
And people don't see that. They see now.
Right.
I mean, what else did you step out of to get to where you're at? I mean, I know the heart issue, but the heart issue came after you've actually had gone through what most people wouldn't have to begin with.
Right. Um, I talk about it differently now because I have a different perspective, but in my early 20s while serving in the military, I had some off-duty accidents, playing softball of all things. Tore my shoulder out of socket, tore my rotator cuff about 70% of the way around. And I was really kind of set up for failure with that whole debacle because I was low in rank, and I was at a duty station where they didn't have an MRI machine at the actual naval hospital. And so the military didn't spend the $5,000+ to send me off base until I had basically wasted 6 months doing rehab for nothing. And then they're like, you know what, you're not showing any improvement, and we're gonna send you off base. No joke. They send me off base, and the guy like gets my results, and he's like, hey, I'm not supposed to talk to you, but here's my phone number. I'm gonna, he gives me his phone number on a little sticky note. And he's like, this is my personal number at my house. I'm gonna send these back to your command. If they tell you anything other than that you need immediate surgery, please call me and I'll try to get involved. He's like, because your shoulder is so torn, like it's barely hanging from, like, said I had 25 to 30% in the front that was attached, and everything all around the top, back, and all up under my armpit was completely torn in regards to my labrum. So I got surgery on it, and the clown show didn't really stop there, so to speak, because the person who operated on me left an instrument tip in my shoulder. It like unscrewed from the orthoscopic instrument wand, if you will. Don't really know the terminology, but an instrument tip came off in my shoulder. To this day, I still have it in my left deltoid. It shows up on X-rays, and like I wake up from the surgery, and they're taking X-rays with a portable X-ray machine. And they're like, don't move. We gotta figure out where the instrument tip is. And I'm like, what? I'm like coming out of anesthesia. I'm like, what is going on here? They're like, we may have to go in again, hold still, we got to find out where it's at, and I'm barely conscious, so it was a debacle. I found out later, after easily tearing my shoulder out of socket again, and having it operated on by somebody who was really good, that did my revision surgery. They said that essentially when the military operated on me the first time, they said, in their opinion, they should have used 7 or 8 suture anchors for that large of a tear. They used 4, and they didn't, I guess in a labral tear or a joint where you have a capsule around it, we're supposed to use a thermal device to kind of melt things together a little bit in between the all the anchors that they put. Didn't do that, so it's basically like, 4 little snips to hold the main pieces together, throw me out the door with an instrument tip in my shoulder. So that,
what's all saying, close enough for government work.
Yeah, that was a snowball effect. That created like a snowball of all kinds of weird things. I tried to overcome those, stayed in for a little bit, and just the doctor's opinions, and the doctor's opinions of what happened to me after that when I tore some ligaments in my foot, it was just a very negative picture. And I knew what a debacle my surgeries were for my shoulder. And, you know, I'm not a doctor. I'm not medically trained. You know, I've studied nutrition, but, you know, that doesn't make you a surgical doctor by any stretch of the word, you know. So I was like, they're the experts, you know, who knows better than them? So I took it at face value. I took all the negative stuff at face value. I didn't really have anybody telling me anything different. I didn't have any OCR minded friends, you know. It wasn't that I had bad friends, but I didn't particularly have anybody who had experienced, you know, overcoming, you know, the huge life obstacles, or you know, just the OCR mindset of overcoming physical obstacles, you know, to kind of pull me in a different direction. So, you know, flash forward 12 years later, I finally got into OCR, started Googling every reputable physical therapist, you know, who had good shoulder rehab videos that I could possibly find, and started rehabbing my shoulder, started rehabbing my foot, did P90X, P90X2, P90X3, finally did my first Spartan race, and I was hooked. I didn't have the cardiovascular running base, but that slowly started getting there over time, over the course of a year or two of doing the races. And by the time I woke up from the open heart surgery just recently, I had had a lot of surgery recovery experience. And although it was by far my most difficult surgery and the most difficult to just recover from, other than the anxiety, it in some ways was easier to handle than my surgeries that I experienced in my early 20s. So in my early 20s, I didn't have a good mindset. In my early 20s, I didn't have faith in myself. I didn't have faith that if God was willing, you know, and I put in the work, you know, it could happen. Now at like 40 years old, I knew that if God was willing and wanted me to be able to do something, I just needed to put in the work. I knew from experience that if I radically changed my diet, that it can radically affect your recovery rate. I knew that if I put a radical emphasis on trying to get as good a sleep as possible, trying to hydrate as much as possible, trying to move as much as possible. And at the beginning, it just meant getting up and down out of the chair a lot, and then making sure that I had, you know, I walked or used little stretchy bands. You know, I had the mindset of an experience of having been through that before. So it was only the parts that were specific and unique to a heart surgery that were difficult. The other rehab, you know, like my right pectoral didn't really work at first, but I didn't let it bother me too much because I had studied muscle activation with respect to my other injuries, you know, and so I started working the stretchy bands to work on that. And I immediately sought the expertise of a physical therapist. And so I started using all these little things from, you know, previous experience, and, you know, just combined with having a better mindset and a better outlook, I was confident that I, you know, would have a decent recovery. And, you know, so far so good. There's definitely a lot of scares still, a lot of things that produce anxiety, but God's got me here for a reason. that reason might not be to chase personal medals or trifectas. And I have to realize that, and I have to stay attentive to that. But my number wasn't called. So until my number is called, I'm doing whatever I can, trying to stay as positive as I can, trying to keep an open mind to what God has in store for me, and taking it one day at a time.
And that's really all we can do. And it's one of those things that's, and I've mentioned this to people before, is it's really interesting. If you look at almost every religion and belief system on the planet, there's almost always something very similar to the God helps those who help themselves. And for us to sit on the couch and pray that God's going to make us better isn't going to work. No matter what belief system you have to get up and do the work. God's going to help you, or the universe or Allah or whoever is going to help you because you did something. They're not going to do it for you. You still have to do something. And that's one thing that's amazing with you is, you push through, through all these different things that kept being thrown at you saying, you can't do this. And you're like, yeah, I can. Watch me. And that's what's amazing. Talking to you and listening to everything you've gone through, that was pretty much stuff thrown at you in your path, obstacles, per se, thrown at you in your path, and you just found a way around it. It's my favorite saying is from one of my good friends, Jesse. He always says, always forward. Mm-hmm. And that's been my motto. When I was swimming in the triathlon, I'll be honest, swimming is my weakest thing. And all I kept thinking was always forward, just keep moving. And the lifeguard's like, do you need a rest? Do you need a, whatever? And I'm like, no, because if I take that rest, that's my out. And I'm not giving myself that out. I am swimming this whole damn thing without one stop, one rest. I'm doing it. And that was my personal, I had to do it myself, right. And that was me. I finished it because I did it me, and I never thought I would do it. That's been on my bucket list for 20 years. I'm like, I can't swim well enough to do a triathlon. Well, I did it.
You did. In situations like that, you kind of hit the nail on the head. You have to do the work, so things don't just magically happen in regards to progression in a recovery. There are things. So I believe, well, let me back up. I say these things knowing that not everybody shares the same beliefs. You mentioned several belief sets, just a second ago. There's a lot of belief sets and, that differ from mine. And there's a lot of people who don't have a religious belief set at all. They think it's a bunch of malarkey. And I don't try to look down upon anybody for anything. I personally believe that I am a sinner saved by grace. I'm saved by the grace and mercy of Jesus Christ. That's what I believe. I believe that God is sovereign in my life. And along with that, it means that, there are things that God lined up, or that I feel that God lined up in regards to the doctor that was available, the being at home versus being, I died for 2.5 minutes, even being 4 minutes from the hospital, so things had to line up so perfectly for me to still be here, because there's like a less than 4% chance or something like that of surviving an unplanned aortic dissection. So having the on-call nurse that had previously worked in the heart center, calling ahead to the heart center so that the doctor could get called in, and everything was prepped and ready for me, and I still almost didn't make it. There's so many miracles that I can't explain, that I just take on faith, and I'm thankful to God for blessing me. Now that it has happened, that I've been spared, I believe that basically, there's goalposts, so to speak. I don't know exactly what my maximum potential is post-surgery, but I imagine it's some sort of range. There's confines to God's sovereignty for my life, and if I basically do nothing, then I'm going to be bouncing around over here, and not reaping any benefit of effort, but we have free will to make the dietary choices, to do the work, to do the training, to get up off the couch, to do the hard things, to take the advice, do the research, do the hard work again, every meal is a choice to eat something that God designed to heal our bodies with, or to eat man-made junk that is basically a substitute for food, and really isn't food at all. So all of those little battles, those little choices, I think contribute. I don't set the boundaries or the confines for my life. That's completely up to God's sovereignty, but I do have the free will to make as good a decisions as possible, and I don't always make them. I'm, as I said, I'm a sinner saved by grace, or if you don't believe in that sort of thing, I'm just, a human who makes a lot of mistakes. I have the same temptations, same failures, same bad inclinations, as any other man on this planet. Mm-hmm. I'm trying my best, and I've made the choice to make conscious choices with my food, to be selective, to eat as if I'm preparing for the Olympics. I know I'm not preparing for the Olympics. I know that that's not where the upper limit of my potential is, but whatever the upper level of my potential is at, even though I don't know it, I know that to get anywhere close to it, I'm going to have to do certain things. Yes. So I've made the conscious choice to try my best to do those certain things, to put an emphasis on sleep, to try to say no to unhealthy things, to try to say yes more often to things that lower the stress, to eat anti-inflammatory foods, to spend extra money on real clean food versus processed junk. We all have those choices, and I feel that it's helping. It doesn't guarantee anything. It doesn't guarantee that I'm going to live a certain amount of time, or that I'm going to experience, a return to, competitive age group racing and get on a podium. That it's not about that. It's that within my new limits of my scenario, and my situation, if I want to be, like I said, bouncing around in the full potential area, I've got to do some things. It takes some effort on my part. So whether it's whether that stems from a religious belief or a completely non-religious belief, you still have to put in the work. That's the part that the religious people and the non-religious people, I'm sure, can agree upon.
And everyone hates that answer.
If you don't put in the work, well, how's the saying go? Don't be upset with the results you didn't get from the work that you didn't do.
Yeah. So. Well, that's the funny thing. When I lost all the weight, I get so many people that ask me, "What was your secret?" I changed my diet and I worked hard. And they're like, "Well, no, what's your secret?" Literally, I changed my diet and I stopped eating the crap and started making food at home. And me and my wife started cooking, really good meals at home. And I started running. And they're like, "Oh, well, I don't like that." That's the answer you're going to get. It's hard work and dedication. I mean, you have to work for it. It's not going to be something, there's no magic pill or magic prayer or magic spell you can give that's going to suddenly put you into shape. You have to put in the work. That's what's amazing with like everything you've been through is, and I, like I said, I haven't been to the level you are, but I've been to that level where it seems like the universe or God or whatever you want to believe in is throwing obstacles in your way to say you need to, this isn't what you need to do. But you keep going anyway. And you realize that the rewards that you get by pushing past those obstacles and going over those obstacles or around them or whatever you have to do to get past them is well worth the effort.
We're definitely on the same page.
So I know on the email that you sent back to Dawn with all the info, you said stuff, you've got a couple things coming up.
What I do.
Do you want to tell everyone about that? Because normally we try and keep about an hour. We're going to go over that hour, and people are just going to have to deal with it. But you know,
that's a lot of time for people to listen to me talk. So
oh yeah,
I appreciate it. You know, if you're watching this, I appreciate you hanging into this point. Probably wondering, what is this big teeth guy gonna say next? You know, but yeah, I do have some pretty exciting things coming up. We've still got additional races. We got Asheville, Hawaii, and West Virginia on tap. I haven't mentioned it, but because of my restrictions for doing obstacles, I'm only supposed to lift about half of my body weight to keep the blood pressure down. So I've had to, unfortunately, withdraw from stuff like Savage Race, and I had to withdraw from a couple of my OCR World Championship races. But the silver lining is that that OCR Worlds is working with me, and I get to guide my son on course. That's going to be a pretty cool experience. My 14-year-old son is going to run the races at OCR World Championship. He's going to be one of either the first or one of their first visually impaired racers running an age group. And I'm going to run as a guide, and I'm going to have like a vest on that states that I'm a guide. And since I can do the trail running portions, I'm basically going to get to be his visual spotter to allow him to run the competitive race. And the real catch is that I just have to make sure that I stay out of the way of other racers. We obviously can't impede the other racers, but he's going to be able to do the competitive course, even being visually impaired, so that he can experience that, and I get to kind of live vicariously through him. And it's probably going to be just as awesome to do that than it would have been to compete in the 15K as myself. So lots of cool stuff coming up. On my Instagram page, I'm working with some partners on some great stuff. Inside Tracker has helped me a lot in my recovery. We've talked about the nutrition. They've done some blood testing for me, and I got to see firsthand, scientific evidence in what I am low on, what I'm high on, and adjust my diet accordingly. Their help in relation to my low iron has been a tremendous help, because I've actually struggled less at altitude after heart surgery than I previously did before the heart surgery, simply by adjusting some stuff in my diet related to my iron and ferritin and hemoglobin levels. Inside Tracker, totally worth the money if you're ever considering that.
I mean, looking at some of the stuff they do, that's amazing, because that's one thing for me. Like, I've been trying to figure out, and I pretty much just attributed to that I pushed too hard in the month of June. I pushed hard in the month of June. I did 2 marathons. I did a hiking thing that was over 30 miles, and then did another one like the next weekend, another 30 miles. And ever since then, my body's just been like, screw you, we're done. And that's been the hard part, is like, did I overdo it, or am I lacking on some supplement? Do I need iron? Do I need, vitamin D? What am I lacking in my blood, which, that would tell me, what am I lacking that would push me past that limit? Why have I been, I haven't been able to do a sub 30, like 5K in almost a month, which to me is just driving me absolutely batty, because that's slow to me if I can't get under 30 minutes. But my body is just like, no, dude, you're done. You need to, and it's just like, do I need to stop and take a break for a bit? Or is there just some part of my body, something I'm deficient in right now that I need to eat something with more iron, or I need to do this, and that's, looking at that would tell me.
It's really beneficial, because there's so much guesswork. And I don't know about you, but I've been the kind of person that wants to tinker with their diet and take vitamins and supplements. Yep. And be like, hey, a lot of people are deficient in magnesium, so maybe I should take magnesium. But sometimes you don't really know for sure if you need it or not. In a good scenario, you might just be filtering it all out and peeing it down the drain, and kind of just wasting your money. And in some cases, you might actually be causing a little bit of toxicity in your body by overdoing things a little bit, iron being one of them. And fortunately, I was able to get the testing with them and found out for sure, so that I could stop guessing about which ones I needed. You can see which ones are in range, which ones are out of range, and even within the ranges, if something's in range but barely in range, and that you recently ate a bunch of foods that had that in it, and you're still barely in range, you can really play with, if you track your food over a week, for example, a week or two leading up to your test, and you get the results back, there's a lot of good information that you can see to game plan. What do I need more of? What do I need less of? What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And just the time that it saves you. It can save you money on the supplements, but really just, again, taking the guesswork out of it, because you get the results and what is what, and what you need, what you don't need, and you can kind of move on with your life and take the mental stress out of it. So you get a little bit less of, if you think about the times where you have runs that sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not great, and it's like the only variable is what you ate, and so you try to go back to what you ate when you felt good, and and you go back and forth with all this experimentation.
But sometimes it might not be what you ate right beforehand. It might be what you ate yesterday.
Right.
And that's the hard part. That's the one thing for like me and my wife. We lost a whole bunch of weight, doing stuff. We cut a whole bunch out of our diets and, changed what we ate. And both of us started, like, our hair started thinning. And my nickname's Pretty Mike for my hair. So that kind of bugged me. And that was one of the hard parts, was we were trying to figure out what it was. What did we cut out of our diet, that was affecting, that. And that's, even our doctors were like, it could be multiple things that you cut out, but they're not going to test for those. So it's like, and that's one of those things that would help me in, like, knowing that, hey, this is what you're missing out of your diet that could be, one, slowing you down to where you're not your body isn't, ready to start running again. And that's why you've suddenly gone from, and I mean, I'm running like 32-minute 5Ks, but to me, that's like, I should be like 26, 27, not 32. So it drives me nuts, but that might help me say, hey, this is why you have this. And people, I don't think, realize how much diet changes everything.
Yep. And like I said, they're a great company to work with. They've continued to try to educate me and really the community. Their page is a wealth of information. Even just reading through their posts on Instagram, you can get a wealth of information. But when you get a test done, they really give great deal into what foods you can eat to improve a certain marker, what foods you can avoid to improve a certain marker, but then also things that you can do in regards to sleep. There's a lot of different things. It's not just food and sleep, but they have different lifestyle choices. A lot of times they'll, like, for example, your cortisol levels and hormone levels, depending on where they're at and the different ratios, it might be an indication that you're overtraining. And there's been people that have found that if you actually dial back the cardio and increase your weightlifting, it might give you a better balance for your body. Or maybe it's the reverse. Maybe you need to do a little less weightlifting and a little more cardio, but you can see based off of what your hormone levels are instead of guessing, and that's what it all gets down to. Take the guesswork out of it, see where your hormones are actually at, see where your inflammatory markers are at, and go from there.
And this is stuff professional athletes have been doing for years, for decades probably. So It's just now, really, I mean, people are like, oh, this is new. No, this isn't new. This is stuff professional athletes have been doing for a long time. Now it's just becoming affordable. Inside Track is brought into an affordable way for us normal people to do it. everything that I'm reading about on their stuff seems amazing. So we're definitely over the hour that Don always whines at me to stay at. So he's gonna be mad. I've known Don.
Sorry, Don.
Me and Don met in preschool, so I pick on him all the time. But I will be honest, when you talk about what Joey's done for you and everything like that, that's what Don did for me in the start of this. You know, when I first started my weight loss journey, he was the one that kept me motivated and kept me doing this. I keep trying to get him to do it, and I keep trying to be for him what he was for me, but he's more stubborn than I am. So we'll see what happens.
We'll get him out there.
We'll get him out there more. He does some, but he needs to work on a little bit of that, a little bit of it. But he does have a brand new baby, so that he just adopted. So that takes a little bit of his time, just a smidge.
That's tough. I've got 3 kids myself, and when they're little, it's tough.
It is. Like my youngest is 19, so I'm done. No more. Yeah. So is there anything else you want to say to the listeners before we cut out of here?
You know, people have been on for a long time if they're still listening at this point. So thank you again. I'm a regular person. I've had a lot of help. If you need help, ask for help. If you need help, it's there. There's groups like More Heart Than Scars, We Are Oscar Mike, and so many other good teams out there. There's Facebook groups for like Spartan 4.0 and other groups like OCR Tribe, Gormer if you're in the Southeast. There's Southern Spartans, West Coast Spartans. You can link up with people on the OCR Buddy app and find people who are going to do races in the same area. If you're not involved in the OCR community and you want to be, take that step, sign up for a race. You don't have to be ready for the race. Sign up for something that scares you. I encourage people all the time, sign up for something that scares you, because until you have a date looming on your calendar, you're not going to have nearly as much motivation and an accountability to force yourself to do it. You know, a lot of people have trouble exercising. They have trouble with their diet. They have trouble with accountability. I've struggled with all of those off and on my entire life. I'm doing pretty decent with a lot of those now, but it took a long time to get to this point. It's okay to be a beginner. It's okay to be slow. It's okay that you can't do all of the obstacles. It's okay to be afraid. Still, sign up for something. There will be somebody in open wave, you know, once the pro athletes have gone, there will be somebody just like you. I guarantee it, at almost any race that you go to. There's cancer survivors, people coming back from major surgeries, amputees, military veterans with PTS, people who have lost loved ones, people who are running in memory of someone else, people who have lost hundreds of pounds, or they've only lost 1 or 2 pounds, but still have hundreds left to go. And they're out there. Join the community. It's a great community. That's my advice. I mean, you know, I said no to invitations to go do a Spartan or go do a Tough Mudder or go do an adventure race for over 10 years of my life. And it wasn't until I finally did it after like 12 years of saying no that I finally realized how much I loved it, how much I needed the community, how great it would be for my family, how many amazing friends I would meet. You know, I travel more. It changes my perspective on life, changes my perspective on bad things that happen to you in your day-to-day life, because when you get used to willingly entering into a challenging situation, a tough situation, you face the elements, you face obstacles, you face bad weather, you face mud, you face uncomfortableness, scrapes and bruises. And whether it's by yourself or with the help of other people, when you accomplish those things and you get used to that, it makes a lot of the other things that happen in your life way easier to take. And it changes your mindset on things. And I just want to invite as many people as possible. If you've been listening to podcasts like this and you're thinking about taking that first step, please take it. Please sign up for a race. Ask for help. Message me on Instagram if you have questions about how to do that. Find somebody. My family is at most races, most Spartan races, because I have a season pass, and so we go to a lot of them. Highly recommend it. There's very few people that try a race and try these challenges and don't enjoy it. So, like I said, that's my advice. And I guarantee you can do hard things. So pull the trigger, and I hope to see everybody out there.
I agree. I mean, it's one of those things, like you said, I mean, it's really well put. Just get out there and do it. I would have never known how much I love this unless I finally went out and did it. Just get out and do it. One of my favorite things to do is I used to when I get allotted, because I was street team and a lot of stuff with Spartan, and I would get a lot of free races that I wouldn't be able to use them all. And I would get friends all the time like, I want to do it, but it's so expensive. I'm like, here's a free race code. What's your next excuse? Come on, let's go.
Yep.
And let's go.
And you can volunteer.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that if you can't afford a race, if there's one nearby you, almost every race vendor has opportunities to volunteer. Yes. Because they have a core amount of staff that they hire, but they rely heavily on race day volunteers. And I've rarely been to a race where they have all of the volunteer slots completely maxed out. And if you volunteer at, almost every race vendor, if you volunteer, you can later run that same day, or you can run the next day if it's something like a Spartan where they do multiple days. And, it really takes away the excuses. If you can get there, volunteers oftentimes get free parking. You work a shift, you meet a lot of people, you get the experience of, hey, there's normal looking people just like me doing this, so you get the confidence, you get the experience, you get the exposure, you kind of get over the butterflies a little bit, and you get a free race out of it. So whatever you have to do, save your money, volunteer, or, join a giveaway, somehow, some way, get there. You won't regret it.
No, you won't. And if you're worried about, who to do it with, don't want to do it alone, reach out to, Josh, reach out to me at, BeastNet. On Facebook, I'm Mike James. We got the BeastNet pod, which is pretty much the whole team on Instagram. I have an Instagram, but it's my other personality, so I really don't use that one for this very much. I do comedy too, and I have a whole different, he's a little different than Mike. So reach out to one of us. We'll tell you whatever area you're in. I'm pretty sure we know some group in that area that you can work with. Like you said, you got Spartan 4.0, you got Southwest Spartans, you got the Northeast Spartans. You got to say it right. It's Spartans. Spartans. So, I mean, they're everywhere. West Coast Spartans, everything else. I mean, you got them everywhere. So reach out to us. We'll tell you who to talk to. You can get some help. And on that note, thank you all for listening. This has been a longer episode than we've had in a while, but this was such an amazing episode. I had so much fun. Thank you, Josh. And we will see you later.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the BeastNet podcast. If you haven't done it yet, find us on Facebook. Like and share the podcast. Give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. All these things will help to expand the show in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear.